Hello, my name's Katie. I'm an equine lecturer at Brinsbury College. While we're in lockdown at the moment, I thought it'd be a good idea to show you some different things with the horses I have here. If you're lucky enough to be able to follow the government guidelines and be able to sort of interact with the horses, this is something that you could have a little try yourselves. So I'm going to show you today how to pull the horse's mane correctly. As you can see, we've got Ginger here. She's in her 30s, very scruffy pony. As you can see, the mane's quite long and it could really do with a really good tidy up. Okay, so what you'll need first of all is a pulling comb. Okay, now you may find that you don't actually own a pulling comb. Now that doesn't matter too much. You could have a bit of an alternative like your normal little plastic comb or like one like this. A metal comb is better because the plastic does tend to sometimes snap if you're sort of pulling at the mane, which can be a bit annoying when you're pulling. So a pulling comb is better, but you can use an alternative. So first of all, when you start, you've got to think about safety. Okay, we always go on about safety. You need to make sure you're wearing the correct footwear. It's quite difficult, especially when it's a nice sunny day like today. It's quite easy to think, oh, I'll just wear a pair of shorts and put your trainers on. But doing something like pulling a horse's mane, they may come a little bit distressed and they may end up treading on your foot and you becoming injured. Okay, so another thing you need to think of is making sure the horse is in a safe area. So as you can see, Ginger is tied up on a yard with a quick release knot with baling twine, so if she did get a little bit startled at any point, she can break away from the rope safely. Okay, you want to make sure you're positioned safely as well. Some horses can be a little bit fidgety, don't like being tied up at a yard, and you may find that you get yourself a little bit trapped between a wall or a stable and the horse. You want to make sure the horse is sort of angled correctly. Okay, so first of all, we're going to pull her mane. Now, as you can see, she's got quite a few short bits at the top. It looks as if when she's had one of her clips over the winter, it might be that on this side, quite a lot of her mane has been caught by the clippers. So I think what we'll do today to try and tidy her up a little bit is try and match those lengths. So what I'll do is I'm going to aim for sort of like a length here, which would be quite handy actually if you wanted to practice any plaiting techniques as well. The mane being roughly sort of this length would be good to practice your dressage plaits. So when you start the mane, you may want to start in the middle just to make sure that the horse knows what you're doing and you're not starting with a really sensitive area. So the withers can be quite a sensitive area and the pole can be a sensitive area. So if you were to start at either end, you may find that they're a little bit unsure and a little bit startled by it. Okay. So I've never pulled Ginger's mane before, so I'm going to see what she's like. She might be a little bit unsure. So I'm just going to start with a long bit in the middle. So what you need to do is get your comb, pinch onto the mane just with your fingers, and you're just going to back comb it back. Okay, so it's quite long to start with, so I'm not going to worry about judging the length at the moment. I'm just going to back comb some of it. Once I've back combed it, I'm going to twist it once around the comb, place my thumb onto there, just hold the hand at the top, and I'm just going to pull some of the mane out. Ginger didn't seem phased at all by that, so what I'm going to do is I'm going to start at one end and I'm going to work my way across. So I'm going to start at this end here. Like I said, this is more of a sensitive area, so you may find she might get a little bit twitchy. So again, back comb in the mane. Now back comb to where you want the length to be. Okay, so you want it to be about there. You're going to twist it off and you're going to give it a little tug. Now, if you've got a thoroughbred or a finer breed where their mane is quite thin, and it's always quite thin in this area, you don't want to end up pulling too much mane out because they might end up with hardly anything there. If you want to keep the thickness of the mane, the technique you want to try is to comb back the length that you want it, twist it around the comb and hold on to the mane at the same time and have a little tug. And you'll notice that when I'm pulling the mane, it's only pulled out a few strands from the roots, and then it's pulled out mainly most of the mane from the length that I want it. Okay, Ginger's got quite a thick mane, so I'm not going to be too worried about pulling out much of the thickness, because actually it'll be a lot tidier. So I'm going to do it a little bit quicker now. And as you can see, Ginger, I think, is actually quite enjoying it. You'll probably find that this time of the year where they're molting, it actually feels quite nice for them to have the hair taken out. Oh, dusty. That's it. So they can get a little bit unsure. So again, if they do get a little bit startled, you could go back to the middle, do a bit in the middle again, get them a little bit used to it and a little bit settled. So before pulling the horse's mane, you want to make sure that you're pulling it the right length for the right reasons. So some horses, depending on their breed, and if you wanted to take them to a showing class, the length of the mane will be quite important. If you were to pull the mane really short and take a native breed into a showing class, you could actually get marked down for having a short mane. If you've got a native breed like Ginger, it's actually more natural for them to have a little bit of a longer mane. So you'd think about having that little bit of length there. Now you may notice I've given Ginger a hay net while I'm doing this. Now you may find that for some horses the hay net becomes a little bit of a hinder because they do throw their head around quite a lot when they're eating a hay net. But you'll know your horse, you'll know if they're going to stand still, they're going to be a bit of a fidget without a hay net, and you'll know that a hay net is going to help you. Ginger can, sometimes when she's tied up on a yard, especially if all the other horses are out in the field, she can get a little bit anxious about being on her own. So I felt in the situation today she's probably actually going to be better behaved having a hay net. So you can kind of see now where the sort of length is at and kind of what I'm going for. And just to highlight that some horses can actually be very difficult to pull their mane, so you may find that it's not safe to pull their mane without having either an assistant with you to hold them still, or you may even find that they really don't like it, like my other horse doesn't, and it's actually a lot easier for them to be under sedation. So if they get sedated, for example, for their teeth to be filed, you might find that you can sort of sneak in pulling their mane while they're still under the sedation, just to make sure that they're a little bit happier. Because like I said, some horses actually enjoy it, some horses not that phased, like Ginger, she doesn't seem too phased, and then others will really kick off and think, no, I'm not enjoying this. So if your horse is not enjoying it and you feel that the situation is becoming a little bit dangerous, just stop what you're doing. It's easier to be safe than sorry. You don't want to end up with them treading on your foot or pushing you over and getting yourself injured. So some of you watching might think, why don't I just get a pair of scissors and cut it? Now, if I was to get a pair of scissors and cut it, it would, well, one, it'd be extremely difficult to get it straight, and two, even if you did quite a good job and you did get it straight, when the horse sort of moves their head around, it will look chopped at. It will look like it's chopped at with a pair of scissors. I'd love to show you an example, but I don't want to do that to poor Ginger's mane. So by pulling it, it looks natural. It's going back to their natural instinct. So in the wild, what would happen is another horse would come along and have a good old bite at the horse's neck and have a little pull at the mane and pull some of the hair out when they're grooming each other. They'd rub up against trees and rip their hair out. You'll notice that if you look at the horses like in the New Forest, they will have a fairly long mane, and it would be sort of fairly, you know, different. It won't be straight, but it would look quite natural. And when it does get too long, it will get caught in trees and it will get rubbed off by the other horses grooming them. So it actually looks, you want it to look quite natural. Another little tip for you is don't wash the mane beforehand or put any conditioner in it. You kind of want the mane to be as dirty and greasy as possible. The dirtier it is and the greasier it is, the more grip it gives you pulling the mane. Whereas if it was nice and clean after a bath and you've just sprayed some conditioner in, you'll probably find that your fingers and your comb become too slippery, and you'll find it extremely difficult to pull the mane. Right, so just got another little tip for you. Pulling the mane, you may find actually easier if it's on a warm day or if you've just ridden your horse, because it will have their paws quite open ready to pull the mane. If it's quite a cold day and they haven't been exercised, you'll probably find that when you're pulling the mane, it's actually a little bit harder to get the hair out. So you might want to spin them around on a lunge first or after a ride, just to help you out with pulling the mane. Makes it a little bit more comfortable for them too. So I'm going to finish there with Ginger's mane today. She was very good coming up to this point, but as soon as I sort of headed a little bit closer towards her pole here, she started to get a little bit agitated. Just to play it safe, I got my partner to come and hold up a leg as a method of restraint. If you're unsure what I mean by this, literally all you'd need to do is lift up the horse's leg and hold it as if you were picking the feet out, and just hold the foot up while the person is pulling the mane. What I did is I got him to do it the opposite side, and then if he felt that she was going to move, just lets me know, just to put you in a bit of a more safer position. But we're going to finish there today. I'd like to do another video, and I expect you're all thinking it, of tackling Ginger's almighty beard and ear hair. So I think the next video that I'm going to do, I'm going to leave her today because I think I've done enough, pulled her mane. I don't want to upset her anymore today. So next tackling is this beard. Right, well I hope you've learnt lots. Please give it a go if you've got that opportunity, but just make sure that you're always sticking to the government guidelines and social distancing from people, and just make sure you're safe with everything you do.